traveling by cruise when you have that multi-gen collection is definitely the best way to go. I love that you can unpack once. You don't have to continually pack up. Let's go to our next destination, or let's find our transportation and lugging all of your suitcases behind you as you go. Stick my butt on a ship. I don't really care where we're headed to. I'm a happy camper.
Have you been dreaming of travel but not sure where to go or how to begin planning? Well, you found the right podcast.
Welcome to Theme Parks and Passports, the travel podcast for every family ready to explore the world, one destination at a time. I'm Melissa Sanchez, travel addict, wife, and mom of 2 big kids. Along with planning all my family adventures, I've been helping others realize their travel dreams through my company, Spellbound Vacations, since 2010.
And I'm Heidi Mackey, a travel enthusiast with a passion for geek and pulp culture. I'm also a wife and a mom of a spicy tween. Since 2017, I've been creating vacation memories for families through my business, House of Mackey Travel. Join us as we share stories, tips, and talk to those in the know to inspire your family's next great adventure.
Because creating family travel memories can happen in any stage of life. Welcome back to Theme Parks and Passports, the podcast where we unpack the magic of family travel, one destination at a time.
Whether you're road tripping with toddlers or navigating airports with teens, we're here to inspire you to hit the road with the people you love. I'm Heidi Mackey from House of Mackey Travel.
And I'm Melissa Sanchez from Spellbound Vacations. And today we're diving into a travel style that's both heartwarming and somewhat heroic, multi-generational travel. Picture this: 3 generations, 1 destination. Sound amazing? It can be, and maybe just a little chaotic too.
But we've got someone here who's a master of that type of chaos management. Our guest today, Nancy Heimbuecher, has traveled with her mom and a close family friend, lovingly known as Grandma, across oceans, countries, and continents. She's made memories and navigated a few travel hiccups along the way.
Nancy, welcome to Theme Parks and Passports. We're so excited you're here.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
Before we jump into the stories, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, how you became a travel agent, and how travel itself is such a big part of your life?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm from Middletown, New York, and I jumped into travel back in 2011 with Liberty Travel at a brick and mortar store. Eventually, I left, but I never really stopped planning travel for family and friends. And then in 2021, a colleague from the store reached out to me and said, listen, you really need to give this a shot. It's a really great opportunity. The structure worked well for the person who loves to travel. I said, all right, then one of the best decisions that I have made was coming back into the industry.
The rest is history, right?
Absolutely.
And so you've jumped back in, you're, working as a travel agent again. How long had you been planning these multi-gen trips for your family, for your mom and your grandma? How long had you guys been traveling together?
I think the first trip that Grandma actually took with us was back in 2019. And that one, it was, there were 5 of us, and we did Panama Canal. So it was a 3-week adventure. We had to get to California. And so there are people flying from multiple different airports and arriving at different times. And, you're trying to manage the logistics and abilities of each of the travelers. And that can also be a challenge.
What made you decide on the Panama Canal? Like, what inspired that trip to begin with?
I actually, on that particular one, my sister-in-law had wanted to transit the Panama Canal. It was high on her priority list. And once I did some searching and found a well-priced, great option for us, I shared the information with Grandma, who at that point in time was not yet Grandma, but she and another friend and my husband and I, so that the 5 of us said, yes, this is something we want to do. We want to go and we're going to take this adventure.
Awesome. So you decide you're going to do this. Your sister-in-law says, hey, we want to do Panama Canal. You start putting this all together. What were some of your concerns or their concerns before setting off where you were traveling with different age groups?
So probably safety and security of the destinations that we were headed to. What would the accessibility look like for traveling through the airports? My grandma's 5 foot nothing. Sometimes putting your suitcase up in the overhead bin can be challenging. Fortunately, there are often healthy, younger, taller people who are willing to lend a hand, but it's just something to consider. Arriving in an airport in a place where you have not previously visited, don't have experience, that could be a challenge. Making sure that arrangements were in place to catch them. I like to make sure that if we're traveling separately to join up someplace, that I have some sort of transportation where they're going to hold your hand a little bit. They're going to meet you and say, here I am. Let me take you to exactly where you need to be. And I find that that's very helpful for getting the group to the starting point when you're coming from different destinations.
And when choosing the actual trip itself, the company you used, was one of your considerations the pace that may be provided or the comfort or any kind of accommodations that you might have needed traveling with an older adult?
Oh, absolutely. And I find through research and through experience, I have I've come to the realization that traveling by cruise, when you have that multi-gen collection, is definitely the best way to go. I love that you can unpack once. You don't have to continually, okay, pack up, get on the bus, let's go to our next destination, or let's find our transportation and lugging all of your suitcases behind you as you go. I love that if grandma wakes up one day, she's not feeling awesome, it is not a problem. Sit tight, enjoy the ship. And, this part of the group is going to go on and continue on with the exploration off the ship. And if you want some time to rest or read or, what have you, just stay and you won't be left behind. But you also don't need to push if it's not a good day.
Right. Well, that was actually going to lead to my next question. What inspired you to continue to do trips? How often are you traveling with them now? Let's start with that one. And then why did you decide that you guys were great traveling companions?
Well, we are traveling at this point 2 to 3 times a year together.
Wow.
Sometimes it's a week adventure. More often it's 2 or 3 weeks or even a month together.
Wow.
We continue doing it because we just have a great time together, and we giggle like little school children, and age is just a number. Um, we really just enjoy spending time together and exploring the world.
What type of travel have you done with them? You said cruise is the most convenient when it
Yes.
comes to options, but what type of travel have you done as this threesome or part of a larger group as this threesome?
Yeah. So as the threesome, well, the fivesome, we'll call it, we have been to Hawaii, and we did do a 1 week cruise there, but then we also spent more time on the islands and spent about a week in different places. We've done situations where we will fly to meet a cruise, but we're going to fly in 3 to 5 days early to really explore the area that we're in. So you're sort of mixing different experiences with that. Australia, that was one of the experiences where my husband and I were already in Asia. Grandma and mom and the aunt flew in and met us in New Zealand, and we stayed for 5 days there. Then we sailed and wound up in Australia, got off the ship, stayed for several days there before heading back to the US and winding up at 3 different airports along the way. The cruising, I keep going back to the cruising because it really is just the most helpful, but also stick my butt on a ship. I don't really care where we're headed to. I'm a happy camper. And having those experiences and just everything that comes along with it, you're really going to get the most bang for your buck. And a lot of the older folks that are traveling with us, budget can be a concern and fixed income is a concern. And so having something that's sort of built in to give you a complete package can be helpful.
Yeah. And I have to agree, even when you're traveling when multi-gen looks slightly different. When we personally have traveled with my kids, who currently are big kids, but when they were younger, and we would travel with the grandparents, and cruising is a great option because it does have something for everybody. The teens or the kids can go off to the kids club if grandma just wants to go play bingo, if mom and dad want to go to the spa. Like, there's so many options when you are traveling with multi-gen to be able to do and see things and then come back together for the tours or the dinners or whatever it might be. It gives you so many options.
Absolutely.
And I agree. I think that the cruising portion also feels as though you're never super far away, but you have some independence.
Mhm.
We've done the same as you, with my 10-year-old. My sister has brought her family, and she has three. And then we've also taken my mom on that. And it's given us a particular freedom we wouldn't necessarily, I guess we would have on other vacations, other holidays, but we felt more like we could take advantage of it because, say, my mom hangs at the pool with the kids, we went and had dinner at an adult only or lunch at an adult only restaurant. Or we could go to the casino and my mom would watch the kids. Or my sister, my mom, and I could go for a girls' drink and the two husbands have the kids. Or grandma takes the kids and they go do something fun themselves and we hang out next to the pool. Like, you feel like you're always coming back together within a couple of hours. You don't feel like you have to plan something so big that you're vacationing without each other.
Right, because traveling multi-gen doesn't necessarily mean you have to be together every single second that you're on that trip. Traveling multi-gen means traveling together and having and creating those specific memories. However, if the 5 and 7-year-olds want to go do the character meet and greet and grandma wants to hang by the pool, that can all happen within the same multi-gen trip. And I think that's something people need to remember no matter how you're traveling, that it doesn't mean you're together literally every second. Because I imagine, Nancy, that when the 3 or 5 of you are traveling for 3 weeks to a month, you are not together every second of the day.
Yes, yes, that will be correct. There are definitely times when smaller collections of people will split off to go have experiences or do things, and sometimes you just want a quiet book on your balcony, and that is absolutely fine. Like, take it, enjoy it.
Definitely. Definitely.
Nancy, actually, I'd like to go into the fun stuff for a second. What would you say your favorite trip was, um, where you three were there, whether you were with other people or just the three of you?
I would honestly, probably when we did our first Viking cruise, and there were 16 of us
Viking
on that
River
one.
Cruise?
Yes, Viking River. Um, the good old Rhine getaway, which is pretty classic. It's a 7-night itinerary, but there were 16 of us on that adventure.
Oh,
And
wow.
Oh, wow.
we did a pre in The Hague and Amsterdam. And then we did, at the end of the cruise, we headed back to Stateside, and just having this like group of people with you, different ages. I'm the youngest, and the oldest was well into their 80s, uh, different um, physical abilities. And one of the nice things about many of the river cruise options is that they have their excursions are included, but they also have a variation that's geared toward folks that have mobility issues. So that was one of the concerns that we had, because not everybody was going to be able to go wander through the Marksburg Castle, which is half in ruins and very tricky for steps and walking and lots of things. Some people needed a more leisurely stroll and maybe have a stop off in a pub for a beverage. It was definitely a concern. And, it's sort of nice. We had, there was one individual, and they really loved to go for a walk. And the person that was with them on the cruise, not necessarily interested in going for a walk all the time. They would like to sit and read. So there were 14 other people around that are ready to go and accompany and have that adventure with them. And it definitely, I feel the more the merrier. Let's all get together, let's go. And everyone's going to have a good time. And if you don't, the elements are all there. Like it's, if you are not able to enjoy yourself in that kind of a situation, then it's not anybody's uh, fault except your own, we'll say, because the opportunity existed.
On kind of the same note, talking about being on that river cruise and the different activity levels and the, walking through the ruins in your travels with your multi-generational group, did you find that there were certain destinations that work better? I know we talked about cruising in general is really a great way, but were there specific destinations that you did that you were like, this might not work again, or this was fantastic. We should really do this type of destination again.
Yeah, sure. So I would say the destinations that presented challenges uh, were more in the Greece and Italy in those ruins. You know, walking up to the Acropolis. It is not for the faint of heart. It is um if you have either of you been there.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So like it is wall to wall. There are more people than you could have imagined. And
Mhm.
it is not, there are no railings, there's no sidewalks. It is not designed for folks with any kind of a disability. And it's gonna take some chutzpah to get up to the
Yes.
top of that hill. Okay. So
Right.
destinations like that, clearly not for everybody. But
Mhm.
if you are able to make it to the top, what an experience. And just, I was in awe at
Yeah, just
even the
beautiful.
ruins. Yeah, it's just beautiful. Um, so definitely I would go, avoid those ruins, avoid the giant castles and things like that for folks that maybe have an issue. When you have the places that are easy, the places that are like any ability, probably your Caribbean destinations, um, Ireland, the ports that we visited in Ireland and Scotland, those seem to be quite accessible. It, yeah, it really varies, I would say.
Yeah.
A little research on what it is you want to do there is really what helps you decide whether or not it's a good place to take the generations you're planning on taking then,
Oh,
right?
for sure. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. They all have something to give, but really it sounds like it comes down to the people you're going with. Because a multi-gen that includes like a 10-year-old, you may not want them on the ruins either.
Well,
Different reasons. They could get to the top probably without you. So, there's going to be different
Or
reasons I want to take
maybe
them.
with you, but by the time you get up there, you were wishing they weren't with you because of all the complaining that they did
There's
about how
that
hot
too,
and
yeah.
tired they were on the way up. I've done that with a child who wasn't a 10-year-old, much older teenager, where there was a little bit of complaining as we explored ruins and
Oh, the mom.
yeah.
Mom. Actually, I
Is
still
it
do that.
done yet? Are we over yet? But I just want to tell a little funny story that came up when I was in France too. When we did our Greece and Italy trip, everywhere we went, I kept saying, every ruin we visited, I was like, this is so old. These tiles are so old. This is 1,000 years old. And finally, my daughter, who was with us and was 18 at the time, looked at me and said, I've had enough. Stop saying how old everything is. That was I was like, "Oh, okay." So, it definitely does go back to that when you are traveling with multiple ages, is this gonna be a good fit, and how much complaining can you handle from your teenagers if they're if it's hot and things are old, you know?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. We've actually, you know what, taking this around to something a little bit less exotic than than Europe, but even we've done multi-gen to the theme parks, and
Mm,
even there
same.
are considerations of mobility and how much time you can stand in the sun and testing of patience and things like that. Like we've run into that piece with multi-generations too. I mean, I think that it's a problem. It's a problem, a solution, and definitely something you should do no matter what the trip is that you have planned.
Yeah, and I have found with traveling with multi-gen in theme parks and then traveling with multi-gen internationally that if you have issues with mobility for some of the older people traveling with you, so many countries are better than others. Like theme park, so much you need to think about, but there's lots of accommodations we can make in the United States at some of our major theme parks, right?
Right.
Whereas sometimes visiting theme parks in other countries, the accommodations are going to be different.
Right.
Visiting the places, like Nancy was saying, with the ruins and maybe the cobblestone streets. And while, yes, things might not be fully accessible, sometimes you can book a tour where you can let the supplier know we have guests with us that use a cane or something along those lines so that they can make accommodations. I had two lovely women in their 70s who did a celebrity cruise. And when they were in Rome, we did a private golf cart tour for them. So the golf cart was able to get down all the little tiny cobblestone streets. It was a full day event. They were able to literally see everything without having to worry about whether or not they could walk on the streets or go into a specific building because, stairs or whatever the concern might have been because one of them
Right.
had walked with a cane. So those are definitely, Nancy, probably some of the things you have found in destination is trying to find those accommodations, like you mentioned with biking, where they have those different excursion levels.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that golf cart tour is clutch. That we also did that. There were 11 of us for that adventure, and
Mhm.
by and far one of the best tours that we had on that trip. And it's definitely the best way to see Rome. Specifically, everything is spread out. And,
Right.
it's just not, unless you are very young and agile and an athlete, to be able to see all of the places that we were able to in a timely, a short amount of time without feeling like we'd run a marathon at the end of it. Doing it by golf
Right.
cart was definitely the way to go.
Awesome.
There's
Awesome.
a reason why car chases in Rome are done in tiny little Fiats.
Yes.
Yeah.
So true. So true. So, as we kind of come to the end of our discussion, what have you learned about your family, learned about yourself, Nancy, going through these trips where you're traveling, whether it was 5 or your group of 16? What have you learned while doing these?
I've learned that when planning trips for groups like this, and when you do have different abilities and needs, that it's important to speak up about it. And, if you have certain health issues, talk to the cruise line. If you need assistance in the airport, talk to the airline. There are many accommodations, as you said, especially in the United States, um, but also generally in a lot of cases around the world where you can get that extra help for the folks that may need it. I absolutely would also always say, take that darn travel insurance. It might seem, and I tell my clients all the time, I hope this is something you get zero value from. But if the
Mhm.
only thing it gives you is the ability to sleep at night and not worry about what happens, that's enough. And, God forbid something happens, we will all be really glad you have that to take care of whatever the situation is.
That's great advice. Talking as a whole, what advice would you give to someone thinking about bringing multiple generations on a trip for the first time?
Wow. Great question. I would say, well, figure out who are you planning this trip
Who?
for? And it potentially what you want to do may not be what's best for the group that you're bringing. So you got to consider how will, from one end of the spectrum to the other end of the spectrum, how will they enjoy or appreciate this adventure? Is this the right destination or activity for this group? It might be the best thing that you want to do, but to try to make everybody, have the best experience possible, you might need to be more in thought of what the youngest or the oldest really would appreciate and enjoy.
Yeah, and I definitely have found personally, and also working with my clients when you're traveling multi-gen, is to make sure you know something that each person wants to do and make sure that gets done. So if it's, again, the 5-year-old really, you're doing a theme park and the 5-year-old really wants that meet and greet with a specific character, but grandma really wants to eat at that 5-star restaurant, make them both happen. Make sure each person gets that one thing. And granted, there'll probably be many things, but there might be something very specific. Even when you're in a group of 16, I have found, ask them, what is your top priority for this trip? What is it your must do? And you might find 10 out of those 16 people say the exact same thing, but at least you know what everybody wants and what everyone wants to get out of this trip. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah,
I often,
absolutely.
when I'm sitting down with clients or speaking to them for the first time to try to get an idea of what exactly they're looking for, I often ask them to just close their eyes and picture, the destination that they're asking for and tell me, what does it look like? What is it in your head that you envision yourself doing or seeing or experiencing? Because if we don't hit those marks, you're not going to feel like you really went and did and saw exactly what you were hoping to do.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Nancy, we've come to the time in the podcast where Heidi and I ask our guests, would you rather? And it's just what it sounds like. So, today, would you rather travel with your group of 16 on a river cruise, or would you rather travel with your group of 16 to an all inclusive resort in the Caribbean?
Wow. I would probably have to go with the river cruise. I absolutely love being able to see several destinations. I think that for me, getting to have each person have those different opportunities to see different things. And I'm not really a lay on the beach kind of gal, so that all inclusive is generally not going to be my first pick.
Yeah, and I'm with you on that. I'm not I love a great all inclusive resort. For me, I would much rather do that river cruise. I actually just did a river cruise. I think I was with, I want to say 14 other people. And it was just incredible. Loved it. Heidi, how about you?
I think it's going to depend on how much time we have. If we're doing something that's just a short weekend, I may actually go for the all-inclusive so that we don't feel as though we have to do anything. This is assuming it's just family and it's a nice all-inclusive with activities. But if it was something we had more time with, I definitely would do the river cruise or some type of cruising, because I think that way you can also do a lot to hit a lot of people's like bucket lists, depending on where it is that you're going.
Yeah, definitely. So,
Mhm.
Nancy, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your stories with us. You have made multi-gen travel sound amazing, even with the challenges that it may have.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
We're so happy you came on today. Thank you. And for anyone who's been listening and thinking about taking a parent, a grandparent, or even grandkids on a trip, hopefully today we gave you that extra nudge.
And we'll link to Nancy's travel tips and photos in the show notes, so be sure to check those out.
And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave us a review. It helps more families find us and hit the road with confidence.
And until next time, keep making those memories one destination at a time.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to hit subscribe on Spotify or your favorite podcast player. And while you're there, feel free to leave us a rating and review.
Check out the show notes for links to Spellbound Vacations LLC and House of Mackie Travel. Until next time, keep living your best travel life.